Hi there. My name is Corinne Goodwin, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of Eastern Pennsylvania Trans Equity Project. And we're talking about how to change your name in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Today's session, where we're going to be talking about waivers of publication and judgment searches, is the fourth in a six-part series on how to change your name. If you haven't watched the previous three videos, we do encourage you to do so. Today's agenda is going to include why publication is required by the state, but also how you can ask for a waiver of publication and how you're going to handle the court hearing that comes with that. We'll then go into next steps, which includes the judgment searches or financial background checks required by state law. We'll begin with a quick legal disclaimer. We want to remind you that we are not giving you specific legal advice in this series. This is for informational and educational purposes only. If you have a specific question about your situation, you may submit it to us via our email, or you can book a mentoring call with our team members. However, we may still refer you to an attorney if it is a topic that we are not comfortable giving advice on. Additionally, we are only talking about legal name changes in the state of Pennsylvania. If you were born in another state, let's say Florida or Oregon or Washington or California or Montana, you will need to look at the processes that are specific to your state. And there are organizations that can help you with that. At a glance, this is where we're at in the process. We've already talked about fingerprinting and how to submit your fingerprints to the court, as well as completing all of the court documents, and then how to file those documents with the court. Now we're going to talk about publication and judgment searches. And we'll begin by talking about the law. Pennsylvania state law says that anyone, whether they're transgender or cisgender, must publicize their intent to change their name in a local newspaper, as well as in their county law journal. However, the law also says that you can ask for a waiver of that publication requirement if you have a genuine concern for your personal safety. And those are the key words: genuine concern for your personal safety. It's important to know that these ads will state your current legal name and then your chosen name. And that does out you as a transgender individual. Now, while few people read these ads these days, these ads are ultimately searchable on the internet through a simple Google search. So publication can out you, and being outed publicly could result in harassment, discrimination, or violence. Additionally, these ads are searchable on the internet in perpetuity. So that means, for example, you might apply for a job 5, 10, or even 20 years from now, and that employer could do a background check and discover your transgender identity. And that could open you up to discrimination in employment. The good news is that the law does say that you can grant a waiver or get a waiver from a judge if you have a genuine concern for your personal safety. Again, those key words: a genuine concern for your personal safety. Keep in mind, judges do have a lot of leeway in this, and that means that you're going to need to make an official request and make your case publicly to the judge. So you should have gotten a scheduling order in the mail. This tells you the time, date, and place of the hearing for your waiver. You are going to be appearing for a judge at this time, date, and place in the scheduling order. You might have gotten this at the courthouse the day that you filed your paperwork, but it's more likely that it's going to be coming in the mail. Prior to going to your hearing, we're going to encourage you to rehearse your story. Again, you must have a genuine concern for your personal safety if publication is required. So you're going to tell a story that has these key points: that you are a transgender individual, and violence against transgender people runs at rates 4 or even 5 times the national average. That's according to statistics from the FBI. 53% of transgender people have been harassed in public, and 80% of transgender people have been harassed at work. And 92% of employers do detailed background checks that include court records for future employment. Finally, people in Pennsylvania have unfortunately been murdered for no reason other than the fact that they are transgender. And you don't want to become the next victim. So you're going to tell a story to the judge that includes these key points. It'll sound something like this. Your Honor, I am respectfully asking for a waiver of the publication requirement because I have a genuine concern for my personal safety if I am required to publish in the papers. Transgender people face significant barriers in terms of violence against their persons and harassment both in public and in employment. Matter of fact, almost every employer these days does a background check on the people that they're seeking to hire. And if they discover this publication, that will out me as a transgender individual and open me up to potential discrimination in employment. Finally, we know that violence against transgender people is at significant higher levels than it is for other people. And that includes the fact that transgender Pennsylvanians have been murdered. And I want to make sure that I am not the next victim. After you tell your story, you're going to want to be quiet, make eye contact with the judge, and help them to make their decision. The judge may ask if you have any personal examples of harassment, violence, or other issues related to your transgender status. If you do, you want to make sure that you answer those questions truthfully. And if you have the opportunity, provide some details like dates, times, and places. So now that you've rehearsed your story, you're going to be going to court. When you go to court, we want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately and respectfully for the judge. We recommend going like you're dressed for a job interview. In other words, no flip-flops, cut-off shorts, halter tops, or torn t-shirts. Wear a nice top and slacks, or a top and a skirt if you identify as a trans feminine person, nice pair of shoes. Remember, you want to impress the judge. Arrive to the courthouse early so that you can find the courtroom that you've been assigned and get settled in. Have your story ready to go. And it's okay to bring some notes or bullet points with you on an index card or a piece of paper. When you get to the courtroom, you're going to check in with the court officer, and they're going to ask you why you are there. You're going to say that you are there to submit a motion for a waiver of publication regarding a legal name change. They will then take your name down. That's going to be your current legal name. And you need to be prepared that your case may be called using your current legal name. You're then going to wait to be called before the judge. And typically, in most courtrooms, they're going to handle motions from attorneys prior to hearing from general citizens. So you may have to wait for a few minutes. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because you're going to hear how the lawyers speak to the judge, and that'll give you some hints and tips. Once you're called before the judge, you're going to be sworn in to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may want to hand over your copy of the motion to waive publication, and then you're going to ask the judge to waive. Be polite, but be assertive. Explain how publication endangers your personal safety and that you have a genuine concern for that. The judge will then make a decision. Typically, they will make the decision right then and there, although in some cases they may send you their decision in the mail. If they grant the waiver at your hearing, they may proceed directly to the final hearing for your legal name change. This happens often in the case with a minor who doesn't have to get a criminal background check. If they do so, be prepared with all of your paperwork, have it organized and on hand. But it's more likely that you will have to return later for your final court hearing. You're going to get an order from the court that says that they have granted your waiver for publication, or an order that says that you must publicize. If you got the order for waiver, you're just going to hold on to this order, make sure you keep a copy of it organized to bring to your final court hearing. However, if they deny your motion, you will need to publish in the newspapers and then obtain what is called a proof of publication. This is a legal affidavit that is sent from the newspaper to your home. You're then going to move forward with your judgment searches. These are the financial background checks, and then prepare for your final court hearing. Remember, if you're one of our mentoring clients, we want to hear from you. Give us updates as you move through the process, and that way we can provide you with hints and tips and reminders as you move forward. Now let's talk a little bit about judgment searches. In some counties, they may refer to the judgment search as a lien search or a name search. No matter what the name, however, what they are doing is they are looking for any financial issues that may prevent a legal name change. These issues could include things like not paying a mortgage or not paying taxes or not paying fines for speeding tickets, for example. We'll talk about these in a little bit more detail as we move forward. But you're going to get the judgment search conducted in most cases at the Recorder of Deeds office at the county courthouse. Sometimes these offices are called the county recorder's office. A few counties may require that you do it in multiple places. For example, at the prothonotari's office as well as the Recorder of Deeds. When you get the judgment search done, you're going to want to make sure that you complete and hold on to the copies of these forms. You need to get it done in every county where you have lived for the last 5 years. You can do the counties where you previously lived well in advance, but you're going to want to get the judgment search for the county where you are currently living done about 48 hours ahead of your final name change hearing. This is what they're looking for: potential issues that could indicate that you owe people a lot of money. For example, that could be where you had a judgment, maybe for unpaid rent from a landlord, and you need to be making payments on that judgment. It could be where you had a car or a home repossessed because you haven't made payments. It could be unpaid mortgages or contractors' liens against your property. When you have these issues, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be denied a name change. What we recommend that you do in these situations is that you send a certified letter to the debt holder stating that you are going to be changing your name from your current legal name to your chosen name. Send that letter certified with a return receipt so that you can provide that to the judge so they can see that you are working in good faith as somebody who you owe people some money. Less concerning issues are things like college debt or medical debt or reasonable credit card debt. Many people have large amounts of debt for college or for medical emergencies, and the judges know this. It doesn't mean that they may not ask you about it. It doesn't mean that this will not turn up on the judgment search, but it's a common thing and usually doesn't indicate or interfere that you're going to be getting a denial on your name change. Same thing for reasonable credit card debt. It's not unusual for people to have owe money on their credit cards. As long as you are making payments on your credit card, regular payments, you are showing good faith. If you have not made payments on your credit cards or any other bills that you have in collections, we do recommend that you try to make some minimal payments prior to getting your judgment search completed. That way, again, you can show the judge those receipts and they will recognize the fact that you are doing your best to pay your creditors. So in summary, Anybody can apply for a waiver of publication, but you must have a genuine concern for your personal safety. We want to make sure that you're rehearsing your story and making your case for the waiver of publication in an assertive yet respectful manner. Remember, after you get the ruling from the court on your waiver, if you have to publish, you need to make sure you're submitting those ads well in advance of your court hearing. If you do not have to publish, you want to make sure that you're making a copy of the court order and keeping that with the rest of your documentation for the name change. And then don't forget to do the judgment searches. Every county does this a little bit differently, but the good news is that the name change instructions that are downloaded with your packet from the TransEquity project has detailed instructions on how to complete these searches. Our next section is going to be about your court hearing, where you're going to get your name change affirmed under law, and then the next steps that'll follow thereafter. We hope to see you then. Thank you so much.